When customers of America's 4 largest banks visited their local branches on Tuesday, many were greeted by unfamiliar sights, activists in rocking chairs blocking the entrances. Hundreds of older American citizens gathered in Washington to protest against 4 of the country's largest financial institutions, cutting up their credit cards in an act of defiance meant to condemn the bank's funding of oil and gas projects. Senior climate activists of the Old and Bold Third Act movement marched to the downtown D.C. branches of 4 targeted dirty banks: J.P. Morgan Chase, Citibank, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo. They then staged a die-in to symbolize the global threat posed by fossil fuels. Demonstrators sat in painted rocking chairs as they chanted, "Cut it up." The cry was directed at people slashing their credit cards outside the bankers or the bank's branches.
Make sure the banks know that we care, that we're watching them, we're watching how they invest their money. What's interesting is that the U.S. banks have chosen not to follow European banks in terms of divestment from dirty energy, from fossil fuels. They know better, and they're making billions and billions of dollars off of harming our planet when there's other ways to do good business, to do it ethically for the common good for generations to come. That's why I'm here.
I'm dressed like fire because our big banks that we have trusted with our money have been using our money to burn the planet.
The elders-led march was joined by younger activists. It was part of a national campaign to pressure banks to stop financing fossil fuels.
Much of the infrastructure that's created by the fossil fuel industry, that infrastructure that harms us, is oftentimes adjacent to poor neighborhoods, to neighborhoods of color that oftentimes are disenfranchised and don't have the power to speak against such powerful interests.
Activists started planning the protests well before the March 10th failure of Silicon Valley Bank. But in its wake, consumers and businesses have poured tens of thousands of dollars into the coffers of the nation's biggest banks because of their perceived safety, making the demonstrations more timely. The protest also came one day after the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released its report, warning that the world must take swift action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions or face catastrophic and irreversible damage to the planet. This has included sea level rise in several inches, extinction of hundreds of species, and migration of millions of people from places where they can no longer survive.
Yeah, and I work with Honor the Earth.
Honor the Earth, okay, great.
Yeah.
Now, in a move to save dolphins, the top administrative court of France has asked the government to impose a ban on fishing in different parts of the Atlantic. This is after hundreds of dead dolphins recently washed up along the coast. The step taken by the State Council, which is the highest court in matters of government, comes days after a report from an oceanographic institute stating that around 910 dead dolphins had washed up on the Atlantic coast in France since the start of winter. Around 400 marine mammals were discovered dead along the coast in a single week. In its report, the Pelagies Oceanographic Observatory called the incident unprecedented. Many of the bodies of dolphins discovered had injuries from boat engines, nets, and other fishing equipment. Many dolphins had died in February and March, when many of them move closer to the coast in search of food and have higher chances of encountering fishing operations. So far, the government of France has held back from imposing a ban on fishing. Instead, it opted for solutions which can mitigate the impact of industrial fishing on dolphins. On-board cameras and large sound equipment have been introduced to drive the dolphins away. However, the State Council, in its ruling, say the instruments of acoustic deterrence on fishing boats do not guarantee a favorable state of conservation for small cetacean species, including porpoises and dolphins. The court has given a time of 6 months to the government to establish the no fishing zones. It has also ordered an increase in monitoring of accidental capture of dolphins. Keeping our focus on dolphins, in the United States state of New Jersey, a pod of dolphins have died in the Sea Isle city. All 8 dolphins that were stranded on a beach on Tuesday morning have died. The Marine Mammal Stranding Center said 2 of the dolphins died immediately. The center said the other 6 were assisted by a veterinarian, but their condition was rapidly deteriorating. All 8 dolphins have been taken to the New Jersey State Lab for necropsy. Rescuers worked tirelessly to save the pod of dolphins that were beached on the beach. Helped by concerned neighbors, first responders tried to keep the dolphins comfortable with damp sheets and buckets of ocean water until officials at the Marine Mammals Stranding Center arrived. For many, mangroves might appear to be merely coastal cousins of inland forests. However, these rich ecosystems support the planet and people in unique ways. Marking World Water Day, a Brazilian NGO has planted over 30,000 trees to reforest a mangrove wetland. The Green Guanabara project was started in 2021 to regain 12.5 hectares of mangrove wetland in Rio de Janeiro state. The organizations behind this enterprise have planted over 30,000 trees at the Guapi Mirim Environment Protection Area. Local fishermen and collectors also participated in the replanting project. The program was funded by Ocean Pact Company.
Esse aqui é o Rio Caciribu, dos últimos 5 rios limpos que desaguam na Baía de Guanabara. Então, esse projeto Guanabara Verde, né, teve o apoio aqui da Ocean Pact para a gente plantar essas 30.500 mudas de mangue, né? Tem também como função proteger, né, esses últimos rios limpos, né? Proteger a nossa água, né?
E 60% das espécies marinhas visitam o manguezal à época da vida. Então, o manguezal sadio é oceano com peixe, é baías com peixe, é rios com peixe e peixe na mesa do cidadão.
As per the World Economic Forum, the sturdy root systems of mangrove trees help form a natural barrier against violent storm surges and floods. Coastal forests help the fight against global warming by removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, most of which is stored within the plant. By filtering coastal waters, mangroves form a nutrient-rich breeding ground for species that thrive above and below the waterline. On World Water Day, many communities in a rapidly growing economic hub in Ivory Coast find themselves without clean drinking water. In the port city of Abidjan in Ivory Coast, women collect water from streams to meet household requirements. And if they are lucky, late at night, water may dribble out of taps at home. Their homes are full of plastic containers and buckets to collect the water.
S'il y a problème d'eau, ils n'ont qu'à faire, ils vont régler l'affaire d'eau là. On est ici, ça fait 1 an maintenant, on n'a pas compteur. Chaque jour, on charge l'eau. On est fatigué de ça.
Meanwhile, local officials blame insufficient electrical power for the problems they face. They are unable to operate their water pumps to draw the water.
C'est pas facile, nos enfants, d'autres même souvent, ils ont des infections même au niveau même du ventre. Même j'ai une soeur même enceinte même qui est à la maison là, tout dernièrement, actuellement elle est enceinte, elle a eu une infection chronique.
Nous avons besoin que les toilettes soient propres, nous avons besoin que la maison soit propre, les assiettes, bon tout ça on a besoin d'eau. Si c'est pas propre, qu'on n'a pas lavé, les enfants sont là, voilà, ils aspirent les odeurs, la saleté, ça peut les rendre malades.
As the world marks Water Day, according to the United Nations, 1 in 4 people, that is around 2 billion people worldwide, lack safe drinking water. Meanwhile, 1.4 million people die annually of diseases related to poor water, sanitation and hygiene. According to a new analysis by UNICEF, 190 million children in 10 African countries are at the highest risk from a convergence of water-related threats, inadequate water, sanitation and hygiene-related diseases, as well as climate hazards.
Amazing, right?
I think that I want you to find.
Yes, it's fine.
Zimbabwe's rainy season brings a bonanza of wild mushrooms, which many rural families feast upon and sell to boost their incomes. But the bounty also comes with risks. Every year, there are reports of people dying after eating poisonous fungi. Our next report looks at how discerning between safe and toxic mushrooms has evolved into an intergenerational transfer of indigenous knowledge. Take a look.
A group of women run to meet a passing truck on the Harare to Bulawayo highway. They are hoping to entice the drivers into buying the fruits of their harvest, colorful wild mushrooms. It's rainy season and fungi appear from the damp soil, rich in protein, antioxidants and fiber. Wild mushrooms are a prized delicacy and income earner in Zimbabwe, where food and formal jobs are scarce for many. Locals walk into the bush to collect them to supplement their income. But they must do it under the cover of darkness to avoid the landowners who would not welcome their presence.
This is the bush where we pick mushrooms. We wake up early morning around past 3 a.m. and walk into this bush. We can't come late in the day because it's restricted to be in this place. The owners of this place don't always allow people to come and pick mushrooms. So we come early and we will be hiding from them so that by the time it's lunchtime, we are already leaving.
Her pre-dawn trip to the forest marks just the beginning of a day-long process. From the bush, Chivara heads to a busy highway. Using a knife and water, she cleans the mushrooms before joining the stiff competition of other mushroom sellers, hoping to attract passing motorists. There are thousands of varieties of mushrooms. Some are perfectly safe to eat, such as portobello, shiitake, and the common button mushroom found in supermarkets. But many wild mushrooms can cause a stomach upset or allergic reactions, or may even be fatally poisonous. It's very difficult to tell edible and poisonous mushrooms apart. It requires expert knowledge and training to learn which ones are safe to eat. Those without training should not attempt to pick mushrooms for human consumption of any sort. Here, the expert knowledge and training is passed down through the generations, typically from mother to daughter.
We meet a lot of challenges when picking mushrooms in this area. Sometimes we meet thugs and they steal everything from us. Sometimes the farm owners chase us from their land, so we try to do this while hiding. It's tough. We also have to be careful so that we don't get attacked by dangerous wild animals.
The family team combs through the morning dew for shoot-ups under trees and dried leaves. Once they have enough, they clean their bounty and arrange it in bowls to sell.
We go to the highway and sell these mushrooms arranged on small bowls, and for each bowl of mushrooms, we charge $1. We are actually able to feed our families because of these mushrooms.
Women such as Mugobo are dominant players in Zimbabwe's mushroom trade. According to research carried out by the Marondera University of Agricultural Science and Technology, about 1 in 4 women who forage for wild mushrooms are often accompanied by their daughters. In just a few cases, about 1.4%, mothers were accompanied by their sons.
Predominantly,
women have been gatherers and not basically hunters. So they have passed this generation to say whenever women go in, harvest wild foods, whenever they go in and probably looking for firewood, whenever they go in and probably looking at any other delicacies, which are not animals, of course, which is hunting.
To promote safe mushroom consumption and year-round income generation, the government is promoting small-scale commercial production of certain types of mushrooms, such as the oyster mushrooms. But it appears that the wild ones remain the most popular. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
The eastern migratory monarch butterfly is at risk. New reports show a sharp population decline and a loss of habitat in the forest where they spend winter each year. Each year, across North America, millions of orange and black monarch butterflies migrate to Mexico on some 3,200-kilometer journey from Canada. But in just 1 year, the presence of monarch butterflies in their wintering grounds has dropped by 22%. The butterflies occupied only 2.21 hectares in December last year, compared with 2.84 hectares the previous winter season. This is part of a mostly downward trend over the past 25 years, when monarchs once covered more than 45 acres of forest.
¿Y cuál ha sido el comportamiento de la superficie de bosque ocupada por colonias de mariposa monarca en este 22-23? Aquí tenemos el dato, son 2.21, está arriba de lo que fue 2020. En 2021 y 22 tuvimos este repunte debido a las condiciones meteorológicas. Aquí también hubo algunas variaciones en materia de heladas y el fenómeno climático que sigue afectando este proceso, pero estamos en estas cifras regulares.
The annual butterfly count doesn't calculate the individual number of butterflies, but the number of acres they cover when they clump together on tree boughs. Data shows that the number of trees lost from their favorite wintering grounds tripled.
Aquí lo que podemos ver es que si comparamos con el año pasado, debido a los factores climáticos, sobre todo las temperaturas extremas en el norte de Estados Unidos y en el sur de Canadá, parece ser que influyeron en que bajara la porción de la superficie. Además de otros factores que ya especialistas refieren que influyen en su conservación.
Due to a myriad of factors, monarch butterfly numbers have dropped in recent years, according to the director of Mexico's nature reserves. Frost and extreme temperatures in the United States may have played a role in the butterflies' decline during the last winter season.
Temperaturas diferentes. De hecho, nosotros mismos lo observamos dentro de las colonias de monarca. Cada vez las monarcas empiezan su reproducción mucho antes, y justamente porque las temperaturas se mantienen estables y a veces un poco calientes en el invierno, cuando debería de ser exactamente al revés.
Experts say drought, severe weather and loss of habitat pose big threats to the annual migration of the species. Pesticide and herbicide use, as well as climate change factor, pose a massive threat. Solar energy is the future of energy generation as we move away from the polluting fossil fuels. It is a safer, greener and economical way of generating energy. In our next report, we will look at Spain's Barcelona, where since 2018, solar power has doubled in the city, making good use of the sunny weather. And now it is ramping up on its solar energy production with a city council initiative and subsidies. Take a look.
Located in the northeast of Spain, the city of Barcelona is bathed in sunshine for much of the year. Solar power is becoming increasingly popular as a renewable energy option for residents. Solar installations in residential buildings and public spaces have doubled since 2018, now reaching some 29,000 kilowatt peak. Moreover, to help alleviate the investment cost, a 50% council tax rebate is offered to those making the switch. The cut implies a reduction of around $1,060, enough to cover 60% of the installation costs. 13 solar PV installations have already been installed. Cristina Castells, a local councillor responsible for Moment Solar Barcelona, She wants people living in the city's historic buildings to install solar panels.
La normativa obliga sobre todo a la edificación nueva, no a la edificación existente. Y por tanto la edificación existente las de convencer de que esto es interesante para ellos y no para el planeta, sino es interesante para ellos, ¿no? Y entonces yo creo que aquí estamos, ¿no? Y esta iniciativa es un poco esta idea de convencer en las comunidades ya existentes que esto puede ser muy interesante.
Jordi Bosch is one of the 2 apartment owners in this building, who is convinced that solar power is the way forward. 16 panels, 8 per apartment, have been recently installed.
Viene a suponer un coste más o menos de 750 euros por placa. Evidentemente pasan a generarte energía a diario, más en verano que en invierno. Y yo calculo que si tenemos suerte, en 5 años la tendremos rentabilizada, teniendo en cuenta que la vida útil de una placa son 30 años.
With the new panels, his electricity bill is expected to drop from $53 to $11 monthly. In another apartment block, the decision to go green has been unanimous. Resident Francis Square is a pensioner who prides himself in his eco-friendly lifestyle. Everything he owns, from his big electric car to the coffee machine, has been purchased with the environment in mind.
Sí, espero que algún día Barcelona esté, cuando lleguemos en avión, podamos ver todos los terrados llenos de placas solares al 100% de la ocupación. Estamos en un país muy soleado, tenemos mucha energía solar y esta energía solar hay que aprovecharla. Es gratuita y es en beneficio del planeta y de todos nuestros hijos y nietos.
Regarding energy for municipal use, Barcelona has doubled its photovoltaic generation with the construction of 60 new installations in public spaces. The city says its current solar installations are capable of producing 4,300 kilowatt peak. It aims to double them by 2025. Now this comes as Spain's government declared a national climate emergency in 2020, taking a formal first step towards enacting ambitious measures to fight climate change. Moreover, the target coincides with those of the European Union, including a reduction of net carbon emissions to 0 by 2050. Spain's coalition government wants up to 95% of its electricity to come from renewable sources by 2040. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.